Hey everyone, CPO here, and I'm out for a drive in overclocked, and I'll tell you why. Today, I'm going to be dealing with the transmission fluid and filter change. That's right, today is the day. I've been putting it off. It's a 60,000 mile change. I do, subject my vehicle to off-road environments. So the user's manual says 60,000 miles is the time to make that change. I'm at 61,000 now. So I've been putting it off for 1,000 miles because I've been waiting on the weather, which sucks. It is spring. It's not spring. That's what I'm out doing now. I'm out warming up the transmission so that I can get those fluids warmed up so they'll flow easily out. Now, doing a transmission oil and filter change is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you. There is no drain for the transmission. The pan, you have to unbolt it, and then all that fluid just leaks out around the edges. And I've seen some pretty interesting videos, you know who you are, of driveway and garage changes. I'm gonna do something a little bit different. I'm gonna use a Topsider. The Topsider is designed, actually was invented for sucking oil out of boat engines where it's not easy to get to the bottom to drain. So it basically sucks it out of the top. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use a Topsider. I'm gonna suck all of that fluid, as much as I can get, out through the dipstick for the automatic transmission. So I'm warming things up. My transmission fluid temperature is listed here on the Super Chips Trail Dash 2. It says 82 degrees right now. I just started driving around. At driving temp, I'm usually at about 165 normally. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it up to that level. And then I'm gonna go home, park it, and then suck all the fluid out from the top using the Topsider. I'll show you that process. Now, some people have suggested that when I pull off that transmission pan, to replace it with an aftermarket one with a drain plug. To be honest with you, I don't care. So there are some of them that are known to be a pain in the butt themselves, right? I think it's the Dorman one that people bought, and it has a drain plug in it, but unfortunately you can't get to the drain plug because it sits right above the exhaust cross piece. And so you can't actually drain it from there anyway. So it's actually physically pointless to have that drain plug there. Now, there are probably some other ones that don't exhibit that problem. I should probably put my seatbelt on. I don't know why I'm driving around with no seatbelt. I never do that. But they're 40, 50 bucks, whatever. To be honest with you, I invested the money in the Topsider, which I'm going to use for the first time for this because I can use that for a lot of other things. So it was, in my opinion, money more well spent than spending that same amount of money for a pan that I'm going to mess with once every 60,000 miles. So not worth it. I have seen some DIY solutions for putting a drain plug in the bottom, and almost always those end up leaking. So that doesn't appeal to me at all either. So that's why I'm just gonna use the Topsider, suck as much out as I can, and hopefully try and keep things as clean as I can as I do this. So I'm gonna drive around, then I'll go back, park in the garage, and I'll show you what it's like to suck that oil out the top. At the 163, that's not bad. Not bad. With a target of 165, I'll take it. All right, as you can see, I have my LED light bar hung with care. Thank you, Sonny, for that. That was a freebie from Sonny. Anyway, this is the Topsider MVP. I'll put a link in the video description. I got this on Amazon, but it works really well. from what I can tell, and it was worth the money to get it shipped here. Amazon Prime, you can find them cheaper other places by, you know, 10, maybe 15 bucks. It's a pretty simple device. Basically, you have a skinny tube that fits into a larger tube. There's this little compression clamp here that blocks off the flow. Goes into here, and this is a hand pump, and basically you're creating a vacuum in here. So you pump it up 40 times or so. All right, there we go. That's pumped up, and what I'm gonna do is pull out the dipstick and put this in its place. Now what they want you to do is to measure the tube against the dipstick, so you kind of have an idea of how much length you're looking at. They say to mark it with a pen. I'm just gonna put my finger here. All right, so slip that down into there. And then after that, I'm just gonna go until I can feel it bottom out. Now check this out, I'm gonna release this, and it's gonna start sucking up automatic transmission fluid into that container. And it's coming out with some pretty decent force. You can see that steady stream. It's like it's donating blood. That'll take a few minutes, and we'll get down underneath and then deal with the pan. Now you may be tempted, you're sucking all the fluid out, to just say, I'm replacing old fluid with new fluid, that's good enough, and just stopping there. Please don't do that. Go down, change out that filter, clean off that magnet on that transmission pan, and I'll show you why here when we get to that point. It's only been a few minutes, but you can see here it stopped. I don't know how long. I actually went inside, did a quick change into some work-appropriate clothing. All right, I'm gonna clamp it shut. We'll see how well that did at making it mess-free underneath. All right, now mess aside, there's no doubt the hardest part of this operation is getting these bolts back here out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're tucked back up in there. They're actually, some people have found that lowering this exhaust crossover helps. I actually have exhaust spacers, so it's already lowered a little bit. I actually need to remove those spacers. I don't need them anymore. I had that for when I had a stock drive shaft, of which I no longer have. And then some people have even found that removing the transmission cross member helps. Basically, take off this skid plate for the transfer case, put a jack up under there, undo the 3 bolts that hold the transmission, and then lifting the whole thing up a little bit could give some clearance, and then alternatively just removing the whole thing altogether. So I'm gonna experiment a little bit. I actually have a replacement cross member in the house that I've had sitting there for quite a while. I may take this opportunity just to replace that while I'm at it. It's essentially a clearance issue. Those bolts you have to get to are just hard to get to. You can see it right through there, although a creative use of hardware could probably make that happen. So I'm gonna experiment a little bit. I think I'm gonna go ahead and raise the transmission, if anything, just to level that out. You see how it's tilted backwards a little bit. I could obviously jack up the back of the vehicle and fix that, but I may just go ahead and raise that transmission a little bit just to sort of level that out, and then also give me the additional clearance. So I'll play around with it, and we'll see what I come up with. All right, so I did go ahead and drop that transfer case skid so I could lift up the transfer case a little bit, which then also raises the transmission. I brought back some rocks, some stowaways on the transfer case skid plate. Anyway, that's cool. These are like, this is legit like rock. Anyway, you can see how high I raised the transmission, just that much, basically maybe 1.5 inches or so. And what that did is allows me to get to this bolt right here. And I can get to it with my standard ratcheting Torx bit. So I don't have to use anything fancy, just get in there and loosen it up with this. So now I've got all of those pan bolts just slightly loose, and now my plan is to try and get it down without making too much of a mess. So we'll see how successful I am. All right, so I know you're not going to believe me, but yes, I didn't spill anything. And that's how much fluid is in the bottom of that pan still. But it was low enough that all I had to do was carefully bring it down. And now it's acting as its own drip pan for the stuff that is still dripping. But yeah, that worked out really well. I am super happy with that. And I'm gonna let that drip for a little while. And then I'll come back in and we'll replace that filter. A little more mess, but I'm still dripping into my catch can here, which is the transmission pan. So not gonna lie, I did get a little bit of a spillage dropping that filter out just because it sort of came down a little violently. But yeah, not bad. And I'm still dripping into that pan. You can see that gasket is laying on top of the pan. So I cleaned off this magnet, yeah, with bare hands because I'm a moron. But yeah, lots of sludge on there. No metal shavings, which is good. But you need to get that sludge out of there, and that's probably one of the more important parts about this service is the filter and this magnet. And the magnet just sits literally stuck to the bottom of the pan. So now I'm going to clean out the rest of this pan with some brake clean. All right, so here's the transmission pan all cleaned up and proper. My magnet is back in place and cleaned up. Again, don't worry about that sludge, that is normal. What you don't want to see is chunks of metal, but that sludge, no big deal. So this is ready to go back in. This is a new transmission pan gasket. It's a little expensive if you get it from the dealer. You can get it cheaper elsewhere. I would only use the genuine Mopar one personally. And a lot of people say you don't need to change this when you do your service because the factory one is reusable. But then there are others who have said, yeah, it gets hard, sometimes it leaks. Look, so here's the deal. I only do this once every 60,000 miles. There's a small risk in reusing the factory. There's no risk in replacing it. So I'm just going to replace it and make life easy on myself and guarantee I've got a good seal. And that basically just fits around the lip of this pan. Just like that. And then the other thing we need to make sure we change is this filter. Again, I use genuine Mopar products for stuff like this. It's less risk. And you know it's gonna fit, you know it's gonna fit right. So this is gonna slip right into place where the old one did. Notice there's the O-ring there. So anyway, this is gonna go right back up in the top. Pan's gonna go right back into place, and we'll button it all back up and be done. Oh, other than adding fluid, of course. All right, so before I put this last bolt in, I kind of want to show you what it looks like. It's kind of a funky little adapter, and this goes over the lip of the pan to hold it in place. So basically, you're not putting a bolt through the pan, you're putting a bolt into the transmission, and this lip is grabbing the outside of the pan. So that's how those work. And then as I put this in, I'm just finger tightening it around, and I'm making sure that my gasket is in place and seated all the way around. Torque spec on this is a really small, like 105 inch-pounds. That is not a lot. And it's just not enough room, even with that little torque wrench, to get in there. So what I'm going to do is pick one of these in the front, get a feel for how much tension's on it. And match it in the back. All right, there we go. I can drop the transmission back down. I'm still going to replace this cross member, but I'm going to save it for another day. All right, so now I get to refill the transmission with ATF+4. And how much goes in there? Well, exactly what you took out. It's probably going to end up being about 4, maybe 5 quarts. I'm going to start with 4, and then I'll check levels. All right, so definitely have fluid in there. So now I'm going to start it and let it run for a few seconds, cycle it through the gears, get that fluid sort of distributed throughout. Then we'll check for leaks underneath and then check the fluid level again. And yeah, no leaking, that's a good thing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and button everything up and go for a short drive and warm this thing up and then check fluid levels again. All right, so now that I went for a drive and got it all warmed up, obviously first making sure my levels were at least registering on the dipstick. I now have it in park, and I'm gonna do the final check. So you pull it out, clean it, then put it back in to make your check. All right, guys, so that said, I ended up adding just a smidge more transmission fluid, not a lot, to bring it up to the in between I'm actually at the upper end of that range for the hot. There's the 2 holes that you want to be sort of in between at operating temperature. I'm on the top side of that. I think that'll be fine. I will double check it in a day or two after I've been driving around. And yeah, good to go. I double checked underneath, no leaks. That's it. That is the transmission fluid change and filter change on a 2015 Jeep Wrangler JK. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.